What's up, guys? This is Alex Wallace from Wallace Training Systems, and today we're going to talk about fat powerlifters. Now, I don't want to get too far into the weeds on speculating body fat percentages, whether somebody is on drugs or isn't on drugs. I just want to talk about body fat in general when it comes to athletics and specifically powerlifting, or I guess any strength sport. So what you need to understand is that muscle mass is basically the main driving force of what's going to help you lift more weights. So if you can pack on more muscle mass, then you should be able to lift more weight. At the same time, body fat is something that's going to put weight on the scale, but it's not going to help you as much as muscle mass. That being said, if you look at weight restricted sports, a lot of these guys in powerlifting now are starting to almost look like bodybuilders. So there was a time where I think your average powerlifter was just like some soft, fat white guy that was pretty strong. But now you have these legitimate athletes with fairly low body fat percentage and a ton of muscle mass in their weight class, cutting weight and doing all the right things, or at least all the competitive things that we see in other weight restricted sports. And we're seeing a lot of records get broken because of it. That being said, I don't think that we should get to the absolute extreme. So I do think, at least in my experience and working with hundreds of clients literally over the years, there is a certain amount of body fat that I think is beneficial when you're trying to get stronger. So what I find is when somebody starts to get into single-digit body fat percentages, they aren't making as much strength progress, and additionally, they're not as durable as somebody with a little more body fat. So again, that's not for you to rationalize being 35% body fat because you can lift more weights. 35% as a man. That being said, you might be able to lift more weight, but you might have a better Wilks score or be more competitive in powerlifting or any other weight restricted sport if you had less body fat and more muscle mass. So again, guys, everybody's genetics are different, and it's really going to depend on that specific person, how low they can bring their body fat percentage in that given weight class while still having top tier performance. Now, when a bodybuilder's on competition day, just as a contrast, when a bodybuilder's on competition day, he's not at his strongest. I mean, he has a very low body fat percentage. He has a ton of muscle mass for that weight class, but nobody would say that he's ready for, a crazy amount of performance. He looks fantastic, but he's not really ready to perform and lift as heavy as he possibly can. And I think the same thing applies to strength sports. There is a law of diminishing returns where you're starting to get so lean and your diet's getting so hard that you can't perform the same way as if you had a little more body fat. So if I had to put some hard numbers to it, which I don't like to do, I would say most people can perform very, very well with 10 to 15% body fat. These are men. And for women, I would track it maybe 10% more, so 20 to 25%. There are some women that can be a little leaner. There are some men that can be a little leaner too. There's some guys that can compete like savages at single-digit body fat. But I think for most of us, myself included, if I'm between 10 and 15% body fat, that's where I feel good. I feel durable. I feel very strong. When I'm starting to get into single-digit body fat percentage, the restrictive diet, not to mention the psychological fatigue, is tough for me to really perform at my best. So again, although I might look great at 7-8% body fat, I'm certainly not saying that's when I would be ready for a powerlifting meet. And I think that's true for most people. So just to recap, I think that what we're seeing in powerlifting is a general trend for people that have more muscle mass and less body fat in a lot of at least the middle and lower weight classes. Obviously, at the very heaviest weights, these guys are holding a decent bit of body fat, but I think for the most part, guys are getting leaner and more muscular per weight class in powerlifting. Secondly, I think that if you get so lean, so shredded, it's probably going to impact your performance in a negative way. Again, the preparation for a bodybuilding show is different than the preparation for a powerlifting meet or a performance-based sport. And lastly, you need to understand your genetics and you need to be honest with yourself. Are you rationalizing very high body fat percentage so you can lift more weights? Well, maybe you are, or maybe you're at 15, 17%, and you're like, I just feel the best here, and that's okay. But when if you're a man, you're starting to get into 20, 25, 30%, not only is that not healthy, I also think that it's a detriment to your performance because you might be at a lower weight class with just as much muscle mass and enough body fat to warrant good performance and injury prevention. Again, guys, this is just my opinion. This is just my thoughts and what I've experienced as I get ready for powerlifting meets, and I have a lot of clients that are in and out of here. And you might disagree, you might find something different. If you do, make sure you leave it in the comments down below. If you like the video, don't forget to like the video. If you're interested in following this content, make sure you subscribe. Again, I'm Alex Wallace from Wallace Training Systems, and thanks for watching.